Hi, welcome to my first vlog, and as it's possible you may have just randomly chanced upon me, I thought I might begin by sharing with you legends of hidden doorways that lead through to unworldly realms. Maybe our desire to venture in search of magical transformatory experiences originates from an ancient time when our ancestors used to cavort by flickering torches in front of charcoal and ochre aurochs undulating across cave walls. These must have been very intense experiences, and I think they've become possibly a race memory and entered our DNA. Anyway, I'm sure you can think of many contemporary stories which follow in the tradition of the hidden door. There's platform 9 3/4, for instance. But as these old tales do sometimes have a basis in something that might have happened, I thought I would like to dig a little deeper and examine the thread that's leading from them to ideas being proposed by string theory and quantum mechanics and taken up by authors like Philip Pullman in his Dark Materials trilogy, where there's a subtle knife which is capable of cutting the membrane between universes. I was a child when I first discovered these stories about these magical doorways, and I remember walking alongside a wall down a lane, a flintstone wall, scrambling with ivy, scented dog roses and honeysuckle, and I imagined a weathered oak panelled door, inset and low down, with one of those really heavy iron latches on it. What lies behind such an ephemeral door, you might ask? Well, in these old stories, it's a secret garden, or it leads underground to a chamber where there's often a party going on and dancing. And those fortunate to be invited in report back that it was lovely, lovely through there, but they can't really remember quite where there was. And some weren't that keen on coming back. Here's a photograph that I took as an art student, and as you can see, it's a dismal scene of a semi-derelict building with a David Lynch style stream of plastic coming out to one side. But if you would like to look a little closer at the exposed flowery wallpaper, and you see that it kind of offers you an illusion that you might just be able to slip a glimpse through there to some sunny paradise. And I think this longing for escape is at the root of all of these stories. I also think that when we are young, we can mistakenly assume that opportunities will just keep rolling towards us. And these perhaps are also warning stories that if you do strike lucky and you do get an opening for an opportunity, explore straight away. Because if you leave it, assuming you can come back later, you'll often find that such a door has vanished. Washington Irving wrote Rip Van Winkle in 1819 while living in Birmingham, England, when it's a story about a Dutch American who, while walking in the Catskills Mountains, came across a little man who offered him some liquor. They sat, chatted, got drunk, and then Rip Van Winkle fell asleep and woke up some 20 years later. Now, interestingly, Irving's father was from Schaffensee in the Orkneys, and another such story of time travel was told in 1909 on the Isle of Barra in the Western Isles by a 96-year-old man called Donald McKinnon. He told of a new father who went for some whiskey to celebrate with his friends, and on his way home, with the cask under his arm, he also came across a strange little man who was standing in front of a door into a hillside. The little man invited him in for a dance. So the young man went in, and he was enjoying himself for what he thought was an hour or so, when the little man came back up to him and said, "I really think you ought to be getting home. You've been in here a year." And that young man didn't really believe a word of that until he got home, and he found that his family were really frightened to see him. They'd assumed that he'd had a fatal accident somewhere and he was never going to be seen again. So he explained what had happened to him, and he was equally surprised when he then saw that his baby was already walking. In another such story, a man stepped into what was known as a fairy ring. It's those circle of mushrooms sort, and he got trapped in there dancing. He was absolutely exhausted, and he did finally manage to get across the border of mushrooms, but when he did, he suddenly aged 10 years. And these time-lapse stories rather puts one in mind of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, where time passes at different speeds dependent on where you are in space-time. I'm speaking to you from my art room in England, but might we suppose that I could be my own doppelganger, speaking to you from another universe? So we've touched on stories of strange circles where time lapses may occur. And now I would like to move on and examine a connection between magical doorways and stone circles. The Welsh have a legend that on New Year's morn, and timing is very important in these stories, a door may be found to open in a rock by a lake. For those tempted, this particular door leads underground to a small island over in the centre of a lake. There, behind the trees, is a melodious garden with exquisite fruit and flowers, where visitors are welcomed but warned not to remove anything, which rather reminds me of Persephone getting stuck in the underworld because she ate a pomegranate, a fruit with blood-coloured juices. And a reference to Greek mythology brings me round to a rumour started by a satyr called Silenus. One morning, Silenus was found snoring off a hangover while flattening somebody's prized roses, and when doused with water, he paid this no attention whatsoever, being more concerned his angry hosts should calm down and listen to him. He told a tale about a vortex located on the Western Ocean by the land of the Hyperboreans, and in spite of describing this vortex as being impassable, Silenus said that beyond it lay a world with prosperous civilizations and long-lived people. An expedition was even sent out in those times, but retired, disappointed. Here's an image of Silenus from the Villa of Mysteries at Pompeii. In this image, he is often described as offering the boy beside him a drink. But I don't think he's doing that at all. I think Silenus is offering the boy a vision on the dark reflective surface of the wine. You can see what the boy is gazing at when you look to the left of him, where a mask is being held aloft by another person to the boy's right. Silenus liked to tell intriguing stories using alcohol and illusion, and people like to believe him because there is an implication in these tales that these elusive doors in walls and hillsides may be a covert ingress for trespassers or an interloper's loophole into paradise. You see, the Garden of Eden was once thought to have an actual geographical location on Earth. And for generations of people, they seriously believed that the unseelie court of elvish people lived just over a mountain or on a far island to the west, where the sun sets, a mysterious and misty place. So where then, in the time of Silenus, did people think paradise was? A candidate for kingship in the time of the ancient Greeks had to venture to the farthest point west to find a garden owned by nymphs called the Hesperides, and there to overcome a serpent and take his gold. But the serpent was the prince's future as an oracular ghost, and his passport to paradise was a golden apple given as a reward for carrying the sun disk of his reign. I expect you've noticed a profound difference in this story to another about an apple and a garden. In the time of Silenus, it was said that the Hyperboreans lived on the most westerly island at the edge of the world, and a Bishop Dionysius referred to the British Isles as the home of the Hesperides, nymphs of the evening west who have the golden apples of immortality. One of the nymphs was called Edel, meaning bright and brilliant, and this became Edelland, England. Perhaps Britain was fancied as an isle of golden apples, because in Greek mythology, the dragon Laden, a guardian of wisdom and treasure, was thought to live there. Or maybe it was due to the production of bronze. Bronze is an alloy of copper and tin, and there are tin mines in the West Country of England. But if we imagine Greek princes did travel to Britain in the Bronze Age, they might have witnessed religious ceremonies at circular standing stones and experienced the surprising acoustic qualities of these stones when standing within the circle. The stones are also known to have strange, spiralling energy fields, which I'd like to talk about next, and these may have given rise to a rumour about a vortex. In 1969, Guy Underwood published his practical and theoretical research using divining rods in a book called Patterns of the Past. He'd found far more than underground streams and described a complex system of water lines he called the geodeic system, and this gave clues, he said, to the placement of standing stones. He described spiralling energy currents that built up and then were dispersed by the stones, a penetrative power that caused a strong tingling sensation like a mild electric shock, which was capable of preventing horses from being ridden along old trackways that went through standing stone circles. People have since tried to induce these electrical forces by processing round and round the stones or by using pendulums. and subsequently dowsers have followed ley lines to sacred springs and other ancient sites such as Avebury standing stones, and they have discovered huge serpentine energy currents, and many of these have alignments that have mythological connections with dragons. Strange effects can also be experienced at sites without standing stones. One such happened at County Mayo in 1935. A girl decided to climb a mound one sunny afternoon where she spent some time on the wooded summit enjoying the view. It grew chilly, and wanting to go home, she went down and then got a great shock at the bank where she'd come onto the mound. And then all the way around the base of the mound, she sensed an invisible wall of energy with an ever-growing intensity that was flooding towards her. So she retreated back up the hill. She tried again and again to find a way past this barrier until it grew dark. She heard voices, she waved and shouted at a search party, but they didn't see her. Finally, the force abated and she was able to go home. A Japanese theoretical physicist called Michio Kaku once spent time observing koi carp swimming in a lake, and it occurred to him that they were living in their own universe, with the water's surface making the thinnest of barriers between their universe and ours. He fancied that they might have their own theoretical physicists speculating about our experience on this side of the water's surface. And these mind-blowing ideas derived from string theory and quantum mechanics lead us to believe that there might be other universes close by, perhaps in layers, one on top of each other, like pages in a book, separated by an invisible membrane with every possibility of fate realised in each. So we continue to be intrigued by possible entrances into other worlds, and a legend of a hidden door is made anew, as with Pullman's subtle knife. But in the face of this new frontier, I, for one, am not at all sure of the value of space exploration when it comes to emigrating to other habitable planets, since the distances are so vast. Secondly, Brian Cox has explained that our solar system is very unusual because the process of planet building was disrupted early in its history by a supernova exploding in our vicinity. The gas giants are first to form after the ignition of a star, and our Jupiter was buffeted by shock waves in space-time from this explosion, and it went rogue for a while, spiralling inwards until Saturn pulled Jupiter back outwards and stabilised its orbit around the Sun. This event resulted in the inner rocky planets in our solar system being very much smaller than what is average. Apparently, most third rocks from a star in Earth's position are not only a good deal larger than our planet, they also have toxic atmospheres. So being able to find a planet as good as ours in our universe might well be nigh on impossible. However, given that our sun will eventually run out of hydrogen at some point in the future and destroy our planet, and should it be true that there are multiple universes, which string theory says weirdly we can think into being, then I would propose quite another project for humanity's ultimate purpose, were I to write a new story in the tradition of the hidden door. Namely, why not preserve our precious planet from the death of its star by figuring out how to slip it through a membrane into another suitable universe? One with a solar system with a far younger, fully fueled sun, a bigger Mars, which has managed to keep its atmosphere, and with a vacant space at the Goldilocks position. We should take our moon with us too, as it's vital for stabilising the Earth's spin, preventing it from wobbling up and down, freezing and burning its surface. Oh, wow, what a terrifying but awe-inspiring task. And of course, this plan requires that we continue to strive to create a paradise here on Earth. Thanks for watching my vlog, and I would be interested in your thoughts if you would like to post them below. And if you'd like to see further episodes of my stories, please subscribe so that you can receive notifications for my next, which will be on the power and importance of names.